So we'll jump over now into Genio Notes itself. Probably worthwhile saying that you can use this on any platform. I'm going to be doing it on my laptop, but we also have a mobile app. And you can use this in any scenario in which you might need to take notes. For me, that would be in meetings or when I'm doing interviews, for example. But the most common use case is going to be a student in a lecture theatre, a classroom type of environment. So that's the one we'll use in the demo. So how does it work? Right, well, when you go into class, you would obviously log into your Genio Notes account and then start by creating a new event. Always best to give this a name. So we're going to pretend that we are students about to attend a class all on essential equations of the universe. So I'm just going to call this one Essential Equations. I always struggle to type when I know people are watching. Now, the fundamental thing Genio Notes allows you to do is to capture everything. So you don't have to worry about, manually capturing it yourself. Primarily, that's someone talking, but you can also import slides into here, as I'm sure you know. So you can import slides either before, during, or after class. We're going to import them beforehand. I know slides are used frequently within the lecture environment. It's probably worthwhile saying that you don't have to do this. I'm doing this in the demo, of course, but you don't have to import slides in here. And these slides are just going to sit here ready for me to use them when I need them. The primary thing that you're going to be doing, though, is capturing what someone's saying. So we do that, of course, by recording. So you would go up and click on the record button. It's worthwhile saying that this will work in any environment. So if you are in a traditional face-to-face environment, you would record with your microphone. But if you were online like you are now on a Zoom call, a Teams call, or watching a video, you've got your remote recording options as well. It basically allows you to record what's going into your device or what's coming out of it. So it works wherever you need to study. I am obviously in the same room as my laptop right now, so we're going to use the microphone option. Genio Notes will then start to record audio and visualize that audio on screen as blocks of speech with gaps in them whenever there's a pause. The recording is your safety net. It allows you to focus on listening, safe in the knowledge that you're going to have a copy of absolutely everything that's said that you can then turn into a transcript for later review. So it really helps to reduce that cognitive load because you don't have to worry about capturing everything. So if the lecturer says some really important information, like essential equations like Einstein's E equals mc squared or Pythagoras' theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then you're going to capture all of that information. It's probably also worthwhile saying that if you have the Genio Notes plus Captions edition, you can also display live captions during your recording. That's especially helpful for anyone who has hearing loss. You'll know if you've got that version because you'll have this little CC button here that you can toggle on and off. Live captions will give you real-time text on screen as you record. The default language for the captions is in English, but we do have multiple languages that we support. Unfortunately, I do not speak any other languages, so I can't demonstrate that to you. One of the things that I think is important to talk about with the design of the live captions in here is that we only display a few lines at a time. That's a very deliberate thing because we don't want you to be overwhelmed by too much text on screen, which can easily happen. But if you just missed something that somebody said and you want to quickly catch up, these are now all scrollable. So you can now hover over these captions and scroll back through them like so. I actually find the live captions incredibly distracting, so when I'm using them, I turn them off. So that's the capture part of this. What else can you do, though? Well, if you want, you can do nothing. It is a legitimate thing for you to hit the record button, know you're capturing everything, know you can transcribe it later on, and now do nothing. It's not usually what I would advise. I would always advise that you do a little bit of note-taking if you can, if only because it helps you to maintain focus and attention for longer periods of time. Now, if you just sit back and actively choose to do nothing and listen, it's quite easy to zone out. But if you're actively deciding, right, I'm going to listen out for some key points, things that might be interesting, it just keeps you a little bit more alert. It also allows you to navigate through your audio a little bit better afterwards. So we call these annotations. There's lots of different ways you can annotate. I'm not going to show you them all, but the most common one would probably just be to use text. So the idea is if someone said something and you thought, well, that sounds important, I might want to listen back to that later, you could just start typing. So maybe I type key point, hit enter, and then it will add that to your notes feed. You don't have to type those. Some people will find typing whilst trying to listen too much cognitively. So one of the things that you can also use is the labeling system in here. So the heading, the important label, or the review label. I tend to use the important one. So if you hear something and you think that might be important, you can click and hold on that. Whichever way you do this, it adds your note to your notes feed, it timestamps it, and it links it visually to your audio. And what I like about this is that it's encouraging you to listen out for things, but it's incredibly easy to use. It's one of the big things that I love about this. It's dead simple. You're just writing a keyword or two, or just flagging something. Because again, we don't want you distracted too much by writing too many notes. You know, that's going to be cognitively challenging, listening to someone, looking at the slides and writing detailed notes. So just keep this really simple. Now, if you are using this in conjunction with slides, of course, you can incorporate the slides into here. These are not just attachments that sit on the side. You can actually integrate them with the recorded audio. So the idea is if the lecturer moves to the next slide and you want to add that in here and make sure the audio is all synced up, you can click on Post Next Slide. It adds it as a heading in here, and it also adds it into your audio as well. So it's a good way of just making sure your audio and your visuals are aligned. Now, a couple of other things to mention. The scribble tool is another way in which you can annotate for those who prefer a more handwritten type of way to take notes. We designed this originally for students on STEM type subjects who might find it easier to scribble an equation or might want to do a little drawing. So this is effectively a blank canvas. So if someone was telling you about an important equation, or maybe they were writing it on a whiteboard or something like that, you might find it easier to go on here and scribble it down using the blank canvas. Don't ask me what that equation is, by the way. I'm just using it as a little example. You've got pens, highlighters, shapes, you can change colors, line thicknesses, all of that. What I would say though is that if you were planning on using the scribble function primarily, you probably would be better off using the mobile app because, as you might suspect, scribbling on a touchscreen device is a little bit easier than scribbling with your mouse. But you can do them on either one. What we also did a few months back is added the scribble function to slides. Because just like you might want to annotate the things you're listening to, you might also want to annotate the information that's been provided in slides as well. So you will notice that there is a little scribble toolbar here. And what it means is that, let's say the lecturer is talking about something on this slide and tells you a point is really important, you can annotate the slide. I'm not going to go through all of the functions, but the highlight text one is probably my favorite. Does what it says on the tin. It allows you to go on here and highlight text. You've got a freehand text tool as well, so you can go on here and add more notes directly in here, and you can drag that around the screen, and you've got your freehand scribble tool and shapes tool as well. Love that function. It was probably our most requested feature by users until obviously we launched it recently. And that's all of the annotation tools that I want to show you. Probably important to say that not everyone needs to use or will want to use all of those tools, but I wanted to make sure I've covered them all in the demo. What do we do next though? Well, this is where we're going to start looking at some of the AI-powered functions in here. Because if you don't want to use AI, you can use this legitimately. If you want to go back to this now and just listen back to it, you can. You can pop your cursor here, hit the play button. I will hit the play button so you can hear that back. Genio Notes will then start to record audio and visualize that audio on screen as blocks of speech with gaps in them whenever there's a pause. So you can listen back and then you can write your notes up in more detail. You don't have to use AI whatsoever. But we know a little bit of AI use can certainly make things faster and can help the learning process. So the first and fundamental thing we can do in here is to transcribe. So again, this is not forced upon you. We don't want to force people to use AI if they don't want to use it. But if you do want to transcribe this audio, you can go in and do that. Supports multiple languages, including Welsh. And also, recently, we've added a function in here that will automatically allow you to detect formulas and equations. So if you know that you've recorded something with formulas and equations in, you can tell it, yes, I would like you to format them. So I'm just going to click on Transcribe Audio. This is obviously going to transcribe what I've just been through and shown you, so you can see this working in a real-world environment. And it's kind of using two bits of AI now. So it's using AI first to transcribe the audio, and it's probably worthwhile saying that it's never going to be 100% word perfect. Never, ever. But you will struggle to find anything that's more accurate than this. We're always updating the models we use for this to make sure it's at the peak of accuracy. So that's the first part that it's going to do. Once it's finished transcribing, because I told it to, it's then going to try to detect formulas, and it'll turn the plain text part of the formula into a fully formatted equation. And that's actually really useful, because it just means that if you are on a STEM subject, when you're going back through this, it's far easier to read and understand equations when they're displayed as equations. So let's finish doing it now. So I'll show you what we'll do. We'll play this part back, which is where I spoke a few equations. So when you are playing back in the transcript mode, it will allow you to listen back to it, of course, but you can also read and follow it along. So if I put the cursor there and hit the play button, so if the lecturer says some really important information, like essential equations like Einstein's E equals mc squared, or Pythagoras' theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then you're going to capture all of that information. Yeah, and just to show you what that would have looked like if I didn't tell it to format those equations, if I just go in here and turn those formulas off, it would display like that, which, as I'm sure you would agree, is much more difficult to go through and actually read. So we're going to toggle that one back on. So that's a couple of AI functions. But what we want to move on to next is navigation, because I think that's where it really, really helps you. And I'm not going to use this file here because this was me just talking for 5 minutes. I'm going to bring in one of our demo files with a little bit more information in here and talk about how you find stuff that you care about. There's actually 3 different ways you can find information that you care about. The first one's more of a manual way, by using your own annotations, because each of these annotations are linked to moments of time in your audio and in your transcript. So if you go back to this and say, right, well, I flagged something as important, I obviously want to listen back to that, you can hover over here, click the play button, and it will jump straight to that moment in time in here. So I'm going to do that so you can see it. Just be warned, this is not my voice you're going to hear now. It's a voice, it's an AI voice actually that I used to make this little demo file, but you'll get the point. It jumps to that part of the info.
We start with Sir Isaac Newton. His laws defined our everyday experience for centuries.
Yeah, so basically it just means that you can go back to those points that you manually identified you want to go back to, whether the text notes, scribbles, labels, or whatever. The reality is, though, that although some people will be very adept at tagging things live in the moment, there's going to be stuff you miss. It may have just been such an incredibly enthralling session that you were recording and you just forgot to take any notes whatsoever. So you may come back in here and have nothing. And that's why having that think the transcript is really, really useful. Because you can't search for anything in those abstract grey blocks. But I can search through text. So if I come back into this and think, you know what, another lecturer was talking about quantum mechanics, but I didn't make a note about it. Where's that part that they were talking about that? I can just search for it. I can press Command and F, that brings up my in-page search, and then I can hunt for things. So if I start typing in whatever I'm looking for, obviously the more info you put in here, the more it will narrow it down. It's then going to identify, where was that said? So I can say, right, that's part of the transcript where they were talking about quantum mechanics. I can hit play from there. Simple as that. So having the transcript allows you to find info that you know is in there. I use that function all the time when I'm using this in a meeting environment. But again, if you were recording like a 2-hour-long class, there's going to be a lot of words in this transcript. I mean, this recording here is 5 minutes, right? And there's quite a few words in 5 minutes, Times that by up to, 2 hours, you've got a lot of words. And you might not always know what you're looking for. And that's why we have this outline function in here. And the outline function is like the intermediate AI. It analyzes the transcript, identifies different topics, and kind of provides you a bit of a summary. We don't call it a summary, by the way, we call it an outline, but they're kind of the same thing. It will summarize the different topics of conversation that are included in here. It will give each of them a heading and a very brief description, and it allows you to navigate to them. And that's why I view this like a contents page in a book, because it allows you to quickly identify what is included in this recording. Now, there's not a lot in here because it's only a 5-minute recording, but it also allows you to navigate to it. So if I come back in here and decide, right, the part that I want to go back to is Einstein's field equations, you can click on that and it will take you back to that point in the audio, and if I toggle over into the transcript, where they were discussing Einstein's field equations. So it's a way to help you make sense of all the content and to give you a bit of a summary about what was there. But importantly, what it's not doing is just giving you the notes. The onus is still then on you to listen back to the relevant parts and write those notes up in a bit more detail. And writing notes up is incredibly easy. You can add new notes at any point in time, or you can edit existing ones. If you wanted to edit one of these, it would be as simple as going in here and, adding some more info. So I could put, Isaac Newton, etc., etc. You can, if you want, also grab snippets from your transcript. I would say that if you're going to do this, just be selective. You don't want to be copying over huge amounts of the transcript. But if you just want to grab something that someone said and maybe augment it and change it and add to it, you can easily do that. You can highlight sections in here, post it across into your own notes, and then you can change it. And as I say, do whatever you want to it. And also, it's worthwhile saying, because it is a fairly new feature, we had a lot of focus on supporting STEM better recently with the identification of formulas and equations automatically. But you can also manually do this now as well. So let's just say we take this equation, which I scribbled down. If you want that to be displayed properly, I'll just add a little new card there. We now have this insert formula function. So it uses the LaTeX language, which is not a language I speak, but basically that allows you to put in the LaTeX language and then format it for you. Now, because I don't know this language, I'm going to copy and paste here. But just to show you, it means that I could go in and say, right, that's the actual formula in that language. Convert it into this for me, please. And then you can insert it like that, which just means that you can have formulas and equations displayed in the right way. So that's all about navigating your recordings and writing your notes up. And going through that active process is really going to help you to learn this information. But last but not least, testing your knowledge, which Sammy spoke very well about, the importance of that. That's why we have a quizzing tool in here. We call it QuizMe, and it's this little button here. And it's been around for a while, actually, but it has changed a little bit recently. So previously, you just went in here and you only had the option of just doing a quick 5 questions, okay? But now you can customize this. So when you go on customize, you get a few different options, right? I'm actually going to create a new quiz so you can see it from scratch. So you're going to customize. It then allows you to, it's always going to use the transcript. But if you wanted to use the slides as source material, which is a good idea, but there's lots of information on the slides, you can do that. You can also decide which topics. So you can get it to analyze the different topics that were included in here and just get it to test you on specific ones. So if you just want to focus on laws of gravitation, Maxwell's equations, you can just select them. You can also then choose how many questions, so you're not just limited to 5 anymore, and you can change when you get feedback, so you can get them after each question, whereas the default is just to get them all at the end. And I think this QuizMe tool has always got really good feedback because it allows that low stakes self-testing of the content. But these additions, which I'm pretty sure we only launched either just before Christmas or in January, they're very, very new, just allows you to use this tool a little bit more effectively. So obviously you go in here, ask a question, gives you multiple choice answers, and then you do your best to answer it. It obviously tells you if you got it wrong, and then because I selected to get feedback after every question, it gives you the feedback, and then you go on to the next question. So this tool is a really, really good way where you can practice that active recall and test your knowledge on things. And that is a quick demo of Genio Notes, including all of those AI-powered functions. And hopefully you can see now, off the back of the presentation and the demo, why they're there and how it is designed to enhance your learning and not replace it.